Hello again, and thanks for taking the time to watch this video. This next matchup is actually one that has been requested quite a bit in the comments, and it is one that I really enjoyed playing at calling Copenhagen back when we still were a little bit more focused on disruption. But I actually haven't played against Gravy Bones that much with the current Dagger build, the Warrior list. And so, this time we're playing against Gravy Bones. But if you have not subscribed to the channel yet, please, somewhere there is the button to do so. Awesome. Thank you so much. And now let's dive into the game against Gravy Bones. All right, as expected, Gravy Bones wanted to start here. And my hand is okay. I mean, having the sigil turn 0 is great, because no matter what Gravy is doing, I can certainly play the sigil in order to get ahead for 3 life. Here my opponent plays the chart the high seas first. I mean, yes, they need to play blue anyway in order to get something out of the graveyard, but eventually they're also hoping to hit an ally there, as at least the list that I've seen from the calling in Japan weren't playing that many allies, and so it might take a turn or two until they can find an ally in their graveyard. Here they hit 2 blues, a blue Golden Tipple and the Avasti, and obviously no allies because they want to pass turn, but here I play the Sigil of Solace in order to go to 43 life. So I draw a Save Bloodshed, which is nice because we do have the Persuasive Prognosis and the Orb Weaver to establish a Chelicera. And while I would love to play some Disruption, I don't have the means to really push Persuasive Prognosis in power level much. And so what I should do here is use the Persuasive Prognosis to pitch into Hunter's Clave, then flick the other Hunter's Clave, play the Orb Weaver Spinneret, and the Save Bloodshed I can play now before the first Hunter's Clave or after the Chelicera. The idea now to play it before, also already on the Hunter's Clave, is to get Gravy Bones to already block the Hunter's Clave here, ideally with 2 cards. And especially if they have allies in hand, there might not be too many options to block the Chelicera that will come for 3 afterwards. And here they do give me 2 cards, a Sunken Treasure and a Saltwater Swell. So now I can flick to still make sure that they become marked like this. And now I can play the Orb Weaver Spinneret and come in for 3. And then depending on if I draw and what I draw, I can still use the Pick Up the Point to come in for another 3 damage. Here the Save Bloodshed draws a Tarantula Toxin, so that should be my arsenal target here. So another 3 with Pick Up the Point. My opponent doesn't block, so Gravy going down to 33 here. My next hand is, okay, so if I can play it like this, I'll definitely try to play the Surgical Extraction at the end to, come with some disruption. But here my opponent plays a Chum. And seeing Chum early is definitely good here for Gravy, because for me it remains the ally that is the hardest to clear because of the 6 life. And with the hand that I have, I can certainly clear Chum, but it would also mean that my turn is over, right? I mean, I could use, for example, the Codex and pitch it into Graphene Chelicera, use the Scar Tissue as well as the Toxin to clear the Chum. I could also achieve the same thing actually with the Hunter's Clave here. And probably in hindsight, this is what I should have done. I probably should have cleared the Chum here right away. My opponent does not have any other allies in grave, so they still need to jump over the hurdle of getting some more into their graveyard. Obviously, they can certainly do that with a 5-card hand, and I think right now they have 2 gold or 3 gold. But here, I think I wanted to go face too much, and especially with the current Gravy list, the way they changed after the Tipple banning, I probably should have played this a little bit slower and really focused on, clearing the Chum here. Because what can happen now is that he uses Chum before I can play my second Chain Link. And that way, I would not have that many options. Right here, I play this Scar Tissue, and especially if he does it now, like he does, there aren't that many options that I have anymore. Right? I can use now the Toxin to go up to 8 and mark, but then what do? I mean, yes, I could play the Surgical Extraction. I do have the resource for it, but it's 4 damage on a 6 power ally. Yeah, and so again, in hindsight, I think I should have played the Chum here and then put, the Codex or maybe the Surgical into Arsenal and pass turn. Because now, well, I also need to pass turn. Yes, I got 6 damage through, and he's losing the Quick Dodge Flexors. But yeah, at the same time, Chum is still on the board, and that remains a threat. Offensively, but especially defensively for the next couple of turns. So my opponent plays a Loot the Hold and establishes a Swabby, pitches a Fearless Confrontation, pitches 2 Fearless Confrontation. This might come back at the end of the game, by the way. And so because of the Loot the Hold, I either need to take 7 damage and then discard a card, or I could try to block this out, but I mean 7 is quite difficult with 2/3 blocks and 2/2 blocks. And I don't want to give equipment just now, especially like Mask of Deceit does not work on any of the allies. I need to play it on a physical attack, like an attack. So I'm really thinking that probably it's best for me to take 7 and discard the Codex of Inertia. Right, my opponent is already marked, so playing the Saver and also the Pain in the Backside, it allows me to clear both allies. Right, I can send the Pain in the Backside to get rid of the Swabby, and then I can use the Surgical and the Saber Bloodshed to get rid of the Chum, because it would come in for 5 and 1 respectively. And that's what I do here. Because the thing is, if I would try to go face, my opponent would most likely activate Chum again. And I did not want to come into a situation again where I am forced to AP myself by not being able to play the cards. And this way now Chum is my target, right? So I play the Saber Bloodshed. It's a pity that I can't draw from it, but I mean, I do not have a really good Codex target right now anyway, so it's unlikely for me to play the Codex from my arsenal right now. Okay, my opponent uses the Compass of the Sunken Depth, and he uses Chum, so now it's clear I need to attack him anyway. But that was the plan in the first place. But now obviously he has another Chum in his graveyard. So yeah, for my opponent to see 2 Chums this early is definitely good, but also allows me to clear them quite early. And here we get rid of the first one. But also I had to use my full turn to do this. And obviously, not able to use any kind of disruption or push any kind of damage. Cool. And here I do have an interesting hand that, would incline me to use Mask of Deceit on one of their attacks to flip into the Black Widow, right? Because I have a Kiss of Death, I have the Stains of the Redback. For Go Again, I do have 2 Assassin cards that I can discard for Black Widow, so it would come in for 9 Go Again, and then maybe keeping the Codex of Inertia to pitch into Hunter's Clave, flick the Kiss of Death to get rid of the full hand of my opponent, and also to push a good amount of damage. Here my opponent plays their first Prismatic Leyline, so Murderous Rebel comes in for 6, and so I block with the Mask of Deceit and flip into the Black Widow. Because the good thing is that if my opponent draws a few allies, they might not be able to block out the Kiss of Death. And that way, if they block with the card that can block, I might be able to banish one or two of their allies. Not likely, because they certainly will try to play around it and then probably take the damage. But I think this is an okay play here. Now, obviously, with Chum being on board, there's one less line I can play, because what I could have done is Orbweaver Spinneret, Kiss of Death, Stains of Redback, and discard the Codex of Inertia. Then the Kiss of Death would come in for 12, use the Tunic resource for Graphene Chelicera, and then, taking 13, 14, 15, 16 damage, if I'm not mistaken, if my opponent doesn't block. But first, of course, there comes the Chum for 6 because of the ley line. And they also have an Arsenal card. And they still have a Rigor Mortis in graveyard that they can develop later on. But now with the Chum on board, of course, using the Orbweaver first would allow for my opponent to use Chum, and then me not being able to hit my opponent with the Black Widow. I think there's also a world where I do not, where I clear the Chum, right? What I could do also is to use the Kiss of Death, play the Stains of the Redback for 6, go again into the Chum, maybe flick the Graphene Chelicera, use the Orbweaver Spinneret, then the Tunic resource to come in for 4, discard the Codex of Inertia to come in for 7. But I chose the other line here, and my opponent gives me baited hook and 3 cards, and then still discards the last ally to Chum. So as said, like, he's able to get the hand free of allies. I still decided to go with the Black Widow trigger here to be able to flick the Kiss of Death, because at that moment they still had 1 card in hand. So very heads up play from my opponent here, and not as impactful as I would have wanted it. Cool. And so here my thinking is, do I send like a Hunter's Clave for 1 to Chum, which doesn't do anything, or do I play the Codex of Inertia? Of course, like, I can't use the Ponder token, but what I could do with it is give my opponent the Inertia. And ideally, they cannot do anything with their arsenal, but in this case, they actually do have a Portside Exchange, which allows them to draw a card. It's a yellow, so exactly enough to come in with Rigor Mortis for 6, also activating the Gold-Bladed Hook, because they have used the Portside Exchange and discarded nothing, right? But they made a gold. So here they're coming in for 6, and now there are 2 allies on board again. And so with my hand now, I'm thinking, okay, how can I get rid at least of that Chum, but ideally also from the Rigor Mortis. And so here I decide to first go face with the Persuasive Prognosis. I could then, because my opponent is marked, so Persuasive Prognosis comes in for 2, I could then, if it doesn't hit, use the Stains of the Redback to go for a go again. And here my opponent uses Chum again to discard a Swabby. And the good thing is I still believe I have enough power in my hand to kill the Chum, right? Because I also have the Codex. And so here my opponent doesn't block, so hitting for 2 and banishing a yellow, and my opponent does not have a yellow in hand, which is very unfortunate. They do have 2 blues and a red, so me getting the yellow from top deck was pretty hurtful here. But now this allows me to use the Graphene Chelicera, right? I can pitch one of the cards into the Graphene Chelicera and attacking the Chum. Playing the Orbweaver Spinneret. So first playing the Orbweaver Spinneret, that gives me +1 on the Graphene Chelicera, so it comes in for 2. I can then use the Stains of the Redback to give it go again, +3, so 5. and then use Mark of the Black Widow to attack the chum again with a Hunter's Clave. And then I could also play the Codex. My opponent has 2 blues in hand right now and a CCNC. So I definitely want to get rid of my arsenal, right? Because right now he would most likely just play the CCNC for 8 and then play the Rigor Mortis afterwards. So that's why now next I play the Codex. I don't have the ideal target, right? I don't have anything to threaten their arsenal, but at least they need to discard a card and put a card into their arsenal. And here I decide for the Persuasive Prognosis. I mean, it only comes in for 1, but I could technically give it a flick from the Hunter's Clave and bring it up to 2. And that way, ideally, get another card from my opponent's hand. But my opponent decides to not block this. So I get 2 life in total because I banish Tip the Barkeep. So Jittery Bones. So Tip the Barkeep is banished. Opponent only has the Conqueror of the High Seas in hand. Most likely not allowing him to play this. But it allows him to play the Rigor Mortis for 6. But my hand is quite decent. I have an Orbweaver in arsenal. I have an Orbweaver in hand, blue to pitch. I mean, I definitely want to clear the Rigor Mortis, but ideally I also want to send some disruption towards my opponent. I know that there's a blue Saltwater Swell in arsenal. And so here I start hitting Rigor Mortis for 1 with a Clave. Unfortunate that it doesn't, mark my opponent, but I still have the pain in the backside. And I do have a pick up the point, which is great. So I could even flick the Hunter's Clave and then use the last resource to get one of the Claves back. Because I expect, as he does here, I expect my opponent to usually always block pain in the backside. With 3 block, they can negate 4 damage. And so here I play the Orbweaver first, Mark of the Black Widow, so now coming in for 6. So they would need to block this for 7 if they don't want to banish a card. So that's at least 2 cards from the hand if it's a 3 block and a D-React. Or maybe even need to give me the dual threat if they want to block this. Or they are fine with banishing a card from hand. I mean, they're up 11 points of life. And they still have a Swabby and a Chum Engrave to develop. I think the worst thing that could happen here for me while they are using that Gravy ability is me flicking and them blocking for 7 in total, and then not me able to use the resource to get the Dagger back. And so here I still do it, right? Because I need to play to win and not to play to not lose. So definitely hurts that they have the Blood in the Water in hand. So they are able to block this. In hindsight, maybe what I should have done is to use the starting point now and to use the pick up the point to come in for 3 and get my Dagger back, because I have this floating resource and I need the Dagger, right? Now playing without a Dagger makes it much tougher on myself. I'm rolling into Arakni Trapdoor. I definitely get a trap here because my opponent still has 2 cards, so there most likely is something that I can block. So here comes the Saltwater Swell, pitching a blue Murderous Rebel, but they're revealing a Conqueror of the High Seas, so no resources for them. So with 2 resources right now, impossible to get either the Swabby or the Chum on board. So that's why I don't expect another attack here, but we'll use the Inertia Trap to block this 1 damage here. So now my opponent uses the gold to get the Conqueror of the High Seas and now put it in arsenal. Good for us that we were able to get a Command and Conquer. So we can certainly make it harder on my opponent to to play this. And here's definitely a mistake that I do, because I'm short a resource. Because what I would love to do is to retrieve the Dagger and play still attack my opponent with the Graphene Chelicera, because they are marked. But here what I do is I do not retrieve, because I want to do the damage here and keep my opponent marked. But that way, I now need the 2 resources to play the Command and Conquer, right? And so that way I did not have a floating resource to get the Clave back. But again, in hindsight, I should have not used the Scar Tissue, but used it as a resource to get the Clave back. Because, yeah, fighting with just 1 Dagger, it not being the Clave, it's like an uphill battle here. Opponent blocks with 2 blues. I would have loved for it to only be allies in his hand and me getting the CC and C here, but yeah, getting 2 blues is also helpful because it makes my opponent's turn much harder. And again, considering my hand, there are too few resources, right? If I want to get my Clave back. So first, my opponent here plays a Chart the High Seas and finds 2 allies. So 2 gold, but also no blue. So no resources right now. And with just 1 card in hand, it is quite unlikely, I think, for them to be able to play the CC and C here. And so instead, they develop another Chum and come in for 4. So I decide not to block this. They already have so much gold, so I can't. It doesn't matter if I deny them the gold or not. And yeah, again, probably what I should do is get rid of the Chum somehow. And ideally, get my Clave back. But what I do instead is not retrieving the Dagger. Somehow I felt that I need to go face with the looming threat of the CC and C. And so I come in for a 9 to the face, which is, maybe it's also okay to do this, right? Because I bring him down alive quite a bit. And now I can play the Mark of the Black Widow for 4, also use the Sigil. And so I play the Sigil to gain 3 life and use the starting point, because I really want to get rid of my arsenal to not allow them to hit this, but rather convert this to 3 more damage. But also what happens now is that I get rid of my last retrieve option. And so for the remainder of the game, I will not have a Clave. And this was definitely a mistake. I especially because I now used the starting point to play the pick up the point without having a resource. I should have done this 2 turns earlier and get the Clave back. Because now my hand doesn't do much, right? No matter how much or little damage my opponent sends, with the Clave, there would have been a line, right? I could have used Surgical Extraction to come in with a Clave, play Saver, come in with the Chelicera, ideally draw a card, play the Leave No Witnesses. Many options, but yeah, not without a Clave. And of course, my opponent still has Chum on the board. And yeah, there are just not many options for me to get rid of it. So my opponent pitches through a lot of gold. There's a Rigor Mortis and a Sawbones that they've pitched, a Fearless Confrontation, a Call to the Grave. And now comes the Conqueror of the High Seas. Luckily, I don't have an arsenal, but it's still 8 damage, right? And because my hand does not convert well here, I decide to block with 2 cards here at least. And then most likely, they will come in with a Chum on the next hand. And so because my opponent used the Gold Kiss Rum here, I should not block the Chum, right? Because there's certainly more damage coming. And yeah, this way, I'm kind of like open to whatever comes, right? In the end, it doesn't matter, right? But here, I need to give my Codex because they played the Loot the Hold. If I would have kept the Leave No Witnesses, in theory, I could have blocked with, like Tunic, and it doesn't matter, right? At the end, I give him my full hand anyway. But yeah. Here, complete blue hand, and again, not much to convert without my Clave. Overcrowded, definitely good arsenal target, but first I need to take a look at what my opponent is here. And so he uses gold-baited hook and plays Rigor Mortis. So block with 2 blues, leaving me with the overcrowded and the surgical. My opponent uses Chum to discard another ally. And so for me, there are 2 options my next turn. I could either use the surgical extraction, pitch the overcrowded, come in for 4, and get 2 cards from the hand. Yes. If it's all allies, I might hit something, but that's unlikely in this game state. And so I decide to use the surgical extraction for the Green Chelicera, get rid of the Rigor Mortis, put the overcrowd into arsenal because it allows me to block at least for 2. But this looks quite dire for me right now. My only hope is that my opponent does not get a lot of go again in the next few hands. But here comes a Devasti, and they have 4 allies in total in their graveyard. So here comes Swabby for 7. And so I should try to block for 7 because of the Loot the Hold. I don't want to give them the gold right now because they are starved of gold. And so here comes Chum, and because I have the overcrowded and the surgical, I block with both in order to be able to use my Codex of Frailty on my turn. And given that they most likely have blue 3 blocks in hand, maybe like 1 or 2 allies, I decide to I go for the Leave No Witnesses and attack the Swabby. I use the Leave No Witnesses because it attacks for 4 and doesn't cost me anything. And even if they have the Fearless Confrontation in hand and bring this down to 3, I'm still able to clear the Swabby. And here comes a Fearless Confrontation. And the second Fearless Confrontation, because if you remember, they pitched 2 back-to-back in one of the earlier turns, which I totally forgot. And so they are able to bring down the Leave No Witnesses to 2, and I can't even clear the Swabby. Yeah, so they still have 2 allies on board. But the hand I've drawn is pretty gas, right? I have an Orbweaver Spinneret, I have a Kiss of Death, I have To the Point, and I have, most importantly, I have Tarantula Toxin. And so they come in with a Swabby, and here my thinking is, if I can survive this and play most of these cards, I might have an option to win because my opponent is at 3. And so here I block with Flick Knives and Death Touch, taking 4, going down to 1. And now I'm debating with myself. Does my opponent have allies in hand? If I play the Orbweaver Spinneret now, and my opponent has allies in hand, he could use the Chum ability in order for me to target Chum. And then this turn would be completely wasted, right? Yes, I could clear the Chum, but not much more. And so that is why I'm debating, do I play the Kiss of Death right away? Because that doesn't allow my opponent to have a window to activate Chum. But at the same time, that's maybe not enough damage to kill them. And here at the end, I decide against playing the Orbweaver Spinneret. And in hindsight, this was the wrong decision. Because my opponent does not have an ally in hand. But I don't know that yet. In the end, I still should have played it that way. I should have used the Orbweaver Spinneret. Because if this doesn't succeed, what else is left there, right? I mean, they still have 2 allies on board, so there aren't that many options for me left, right? And so here my opponent gives me 2 cards from hand and the dead threats, so blocking 7. I can now use the Tarantula Toxin to go up to 6 and reduce that block to 4. Use To the Point for 3 more, so going up to 9. And I kind of already expect a D-React. So here's the Blood in the Water, which they had in Arsenal, which is very unfortunate because this way, they go to 1 and they're left with 2 cards. If I would have played the Orbweaver Spinrid before, this would have come for 12 and they would have needed to give me at least 1 more card, right? So either this Prismatic Leyline that they played now or the Murderous Rebel. And yeah, but now they come in for 6 and another 6. And I need to fold my full hand to this. Obviously, it also hurts to not have the Flick Knives anymore. But yeah, it is what it is. There were definitely some mistakes along the way on my end. The only good thing is I am able to mark my opponent here with the Lair of the Spider and then still block out the Chum attack that's coming next. Yeah, but again, with only 12 cards remaining in total, there's not much left for me to do. And so I just pass because there's no need in playing the Orbweaver. And my opponent takes a look at the top of the deck, plays a Murderous Rebel for 3 go again, revealing a Fearless Confrontation. So I block with the Mark of the Black Widow. Now comes a Golden Tipple. And with 2 floating resources, it's already clear that I've lost this game because I can only block for 6. I only have 1 life left, so I'm dead. Yeah, so as mentioned throughout the game, in hindsight, there were definitely some mistakes on my end where I should have decided differently. I mean, my opponent is down to just, 8 cards in deck plus 1 in hand. And then, still 4 allies in graveyard. But there was too much power left, I think. So maybe playing this a little bit more slowly and getting rid of the chums earlier would have helped. But yeah, it's a very skill-intensive matchup. And here my skill was not high enough. So hoping that this will change for calling Hamburg on the weekend. Definitely a learning experience. Cool. So thank you so much for watching this. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. And I hope to see you at Calling Hamburg. Come over, say hi. We'd love to get to know you. Take care. Bye-bye.